Hey everyone, this is Isabel from the Cognito Forms team, and in this tutorial, I'll show you how to assign tasks to guests. Any entry on your entries page can be assigned to a guest as long as guest access is enabled, the public role is assigned to your guest user, and you have a task you set up for them. For this example, I'm going to send my client an invoice that they need to pay. That invoice will be marked as a task until they pay it, and once they've paid, the task will be marked as complete. It's not strictly necessary, but I'll show you how to set a due date for your task so you can send automated email reminders to keep the client on track. Even though your use case will be different than mine, you can still follow this general setup to create a task for your guest user. To begin, we'll go to the build page of our form to make sure it's set up properly. First, check to make sure that your form has a field that collects the identity of your guest user. For this, you'll use either an email field or a person field. If you're not using a guest list to manage guest access, choose an email field to add to your form. If you are using a guest list to manage guest access, you can add a person field to your form and look up people from your guest list. For whichever field you choose, set it to read only when the status of the entry is not incomplete. That way, you can enter the appropriate guest details when creating the task and also ensure that the guest can't view any other names on the guest list or change those details later. Another thing to note is that if you add a person field to your form, the setting automatically defaults to the current user. Since the internal user will be assigning the entry to your guest, this isn't necessary, so you can change the setting to default to none instead. Just to be clear, you don't need both an email field and a person field, just one or the other will do. Now, if you'd like to set a due date for your customer's task, you can also add a date field to your form at this time. If you're going to add a date field, make sure you set it to read only when the entry status is not incomplete. This will allow you to enter the due date when you're creating the entry, but also prevent your guest from changing it later. To save myself some work down the line, I'm actually going to add a calculation here that sets the due date 2 weeks after I send my customer their invoice. Then I'll go to the Workflow tab to assign the public role. Regardless of whether you used an email field or a person field, you'll choose that field from the Share With dropdown. That's really all you need to do on the build page, but before moving on, I want to highlight that I've set Require Authentication to Always for workflow links. No matter what kind of task you're assigning to a guest, you will always require authentication for any forms you share with your guests. I've also set up automated email notifications that sends the guest a direct link to the entry we're assigning as a task. This step isn't required, but it's very helpful because it alerts the guest that an action is needed. Once you're finished on the build page, save your form and go to the entries page. In this case, I want all unpaid invoices to appear as tasks. To do this, I'll click the green plus icon and choose New Task View. I'll label the view name Pay Invoice and assign it to the public role. You'll always use the public role when assigning tasks to guests because guests can only access entry views assigned to the public role. You can select a priority category if you'd like. It won't affect any of the settings. It'll just be a visual indicator to your guest of the urgency of the task. And if you want to set a due date for your guest task, you can do that here. Picking a date using the calendar will apply that date to every task in this view, which is why we added a date field to our form earlier. Now I can just insert that date field so that each person's task will be due 2 weeks after they receive it. If you set a due date for your task, you can also set up automated email reminders by selecting this box and then adding up to 3 email templates at the bottom. These can be scheduled to send before your due date, on your due date, and even after your due date, and will only be sent if your guest has not completed their task yet. Once you're finished, save your settings and then open your filter options. In this case, I only want unpaid invoices to be considered tasks. Once the invoice is paid, it'll disappear from this view and the task will be complete. You may also want to choose which columns your guest sees at a glance. Once you're finished adjusting your entry view, save it. Now all you need to do is create your guest's task. Since we turned off Allow New Entries for this view, we'll need to go back to the All Entries view and click the New button on the right-hand side. From here, I can add the appropriate guest information, include the dollar amount for the cost of services, and then send my client their invoice. Now the guest will receive an email notification with a direct link to the task in their task dashboard, where they'll be able to see all their tasks in one place and they can sort them by priority and date. That's all we're going to cover in this video, but if you need more help setting up your specific use case, please don't hesitate to submit a support request.